Oh my God, I was recording and I thought I was recording and wasn't recording. Anyway, all right, so welcome back to my channel, Dina J from Around the Way. A few videos ago, and even in the last video, I shared that I will be talking about how to craft a pretty decent and concise parenting plan. So I went old school and decided to just print out my parenting plan and read through it because looking at my phone is just annoying. So sometimes. All right, so anyway. So the first thing that you're going to have is just the general provisions. And in my general provisions, it states that my address as the mother is the primary residential address, and it's to be considered the child's primary residence. The reason why that was important to me was because when I was still married, my ex-husband and I talked about moving to this very same neighborhood for the school systems and safety and things like that. So once we were divorced, I still followed through with the plan and moved to the neighborhood and bought my house. And I wanted to make sure that my son was able to be advantageous of the school district and some of the amenities that surround us. So oh my God, y'all, like my camera. Actually, it's my phone. The app, so typically when I'm recording, like I'm using the app to like manage the camera and stuff like that, and this freaking app keeps cutting off my recording. So anyway, this edit is gonna be really interesting. And the second thing is that we had to do or add in there, unfortunately, because of all the drug and alcohol allegations, is that the father and mother shall refrain from drinking more than 2 alcoholic beverages during their respective parenting time. So if you've been following the playlist, you will know that all of this came to a halt for me in entering into this custody case because domestic violence was brought to me, alcoholism was brought to me, drug abuse was brought to me at the hands of a significant other who was essentially just trying to mess with our parenting plan, her words, right? So it says that. And then the second thing that was important to me was like, how do you handle when significant others are dating? Like, how soon should you be introducing a child? You know, so in this, it states that, you know, the minor child should only be able to meet any significant others like 6 months of dating their partner. This was thrown in there, but honestly, my ex-husband had already violated that because he was living with his significant other and the woman that brought all the allegations to me already. I just didn't know about that. And my son was, you know, already overnights over there and everything, and I just had no clue about that. But should anything change on his end or my end, then I wanted that to be in there because, listen, I don't believe that your children should be exposed to anybody and everybody that you date. Your life should not be a revolving door when you are co-parenting and, you know, you have a child, and anybody that comes into your life should not be having access to your child. I believe that once you understand that this is heading somewhere, or this is someone that you could potentially get serious with, and you have those conversations, at that point, then the introduction to your child should be entertained, but it should not be an immediate thing that happens with everybody that you're dating or meet or you feel comfortable inviting to your home. Like, I strongly advise to keep your child away from all of that until you're sure, like, this could be potentially something serious. So the other part that was important to add here is that significant others aren't living with you or your child after a set number of, you know, months or even a year. So in mine, we have a year in here, and basically it states that nobody should be moving in until after a year of seriously dating. Again, my ex-husband was already in violation of that, unbeknownst to me, unfortunately. So whatever, it is what it is. But because of everything that happened, this was formulated after the fact, in the thought of, oh, this is how you move. Well, this is how we're going to have this in here going forward, since you want to play games and not disclose important information like that. And for me, it's always important to just always know what is going on around your child. If anything were to happen, or your child feels uncomfortable about something, or they're talking about something or someone, you should be able to have a point of reference of what the heck they're talking about. So that's that. The other thing is that I don't understand why my ex-husband tried to fight me against this. It was so stupid. But my family is from Panama. I have still family ties in the country. My dad lives there. I have uncles and aunts and extended cousins and everything that live there still. So when I visit, it's a family affair and it's vacation. But for whatever reason, my ex-husband was trying to block me from being able to travel with my son to Panama. And I was definitely not letting that fly. And I fought against that because why? So in here, it was formalized that I will be able to travel to Panama, which is and it states that it's my family's native country. On the even years, I'm able to stay in Panama for a month with my son and allow him to experience in the culture, the family, and everything that we got going on there. So that was extremely, extremely important to me because I want to be able to have my son connected culturally to our culture in Panama. I got the opportunity when I was growing up. I will say that both my mother and father did a very good job in making sure that I had access to, travel to Panama and spend significant time there. I think for a very long time when I was growing up, every summer I was there. If I wasn't there, I was somewhere else, but I was always spending significant time in Panama, no matter what. And because of that, I'm fluent y hablo español muy bien y todo eso. So because of that, boom, that was important to me. So thankfully, the court agreed and I got that. So the another thing that is important is that this notes that it is our obligation as parents to disclose anyone living in the household, any adult living in the hushold with them, right? So let's say my mother decides that she wants to move in with me and I, support that. Then of course I would just let my ex-husband know, hey, my mom is living with us, whatever. Same thing with significant others, like I mentioned a moment ago, and then so on and so forth. I hate that this has to be even in here, but because of all of the events that happen, like these are the silly little things that we had to consider when formulating this parenting plan. It is highlighted in our allocation judgment that medicine should not be administered by anyone outside of us or any significant others. I don't particularly trust whom my ex-husband is with right now, just given everything she did to catapult our parenting in general. So for me, I just wanted to make sure that it is understood that the expectation is that any type of care that is provided to my son with regards to medicine or anything like that, that his father is the one administering that and I'm the one administering that, and that responsibility is not on anybody else. So I also put that in there. This next thing, which has been violated already even after court, is there should be proper notification of travel to for both parents, right? So essentially what I decide to do with my son, whether I'm going out of town or whatever, like, of course, I would give his father proper notice so he is aware of where our son is at every given time. And then the other part is just to make sure that no one is traveling alone with our son. So let's say I'm in a relationship, right? And my significant other wants to take my son to, I don't know, some great adventures or something like that. Like, I would not be able to allow my son to do that on his own with that person. Like, I have to be present. The same applies for my ex-husband and whomever he has in his life. So that's something that's in there, because what I realized is that there was a lot of responsibility that my ex-husband was putting on the significant other. And I'm like, this is your child, not hers. So no, you're responsible for everything that happens with our son. The other thing that we put in there is just the proper notice of like itineraries, like lodging and, flight information and things like that. Unfortunately, just this past holiday season in 2024, my ex-husband violated that. He scheduled a trip to Virginia with whatever, whomever, and refused to give me the hotel information or where he was staying with our son. It was so frustrating. It was like pulling teeth trying to get that information. And I'm just like, dude, like, it's in our allocation judgment. We must provide that information. But his reasoning is that, oh, he didn't want me to harass her family or whatever. It was absolutely asinine, the reason why he wouldn't give me that information. But it does not preclude him from being obligated to give me the information of where our son is. Like, whatever the excuse, it doesn't matter. I should know where our son is at all times. And that is also memorialized in here. All right, moving right along. So as it relates to like the breakdown of the allocation judgment, I mean, you have education, you have religion, you have extracurricular activities, you have medical and health related issues, and then you have phone calls. That was unfortunately an issue, an obligation to notify, and then the actual schedule that you and your significant or your former significant other will follow, good faith flexibility, and then first right of refusal, along with so many other things, right? So there's a lot of other things that need to be highlighted, but let's just start from like the bare bones from the beginning. So education through high school. So I wanted to just have something that covers a lot of time frame, because what I don't want is for there to be so back and forth with every chain of event that happens, unless like it's a big change or, you know, we need to, really revisit court for something that is off, right? So for education, we have it through high school, and essentially what it says here is that, number one, like I mentioned earlier, the minor child attends the school in my district. So in my school district, so as long as wherever I'm living, my school district takes precedence over wherever. So that was number one. And then the other thing that's important is that we have it detailed here that only myself and my child's father are the only ones listed as emergency contacts. And that was also important to me, because for me, I don't care what significant other is into play here. I want to be notified, and I want his father to be notified exclusively of anything that's going on, because our son is our responsibility. And unfortunately, it would, in a normal, like, idealistic world, it would be great if his significant other could be listed as an alternative and my significant other can be listed as an alternative. But because I can't trust what's going on over there, given everything, I just rather it be him and I until anything changes, or we can have like grown-up conversation about what was happening with our child. Until then, it's him and I, and that's it. So one thing I will say is that when it comes to religion, the courts really don't want to mess with religion. Thankfully, we don't have like strong opinions about religion. I mean, I go to church. We at one point went to the same church, so that's not a problem for us. But let's say like I wanted to convert to, I don't know, being a Muslim or something like that. Like I cannot see the court intervening in that at all. That's strictly something that will have to be worked out between the parents, because religion is such a like a touchy subject. Now, when it comes to extracurricular activities and lessons, a couple of things. So my son is signed to a modeling agency. So that is something that he's been doing since he was about 1 year old. So I have that in here because, he gets bookings and he has jobs and castings. So we have to be cooperative of whatever he's being booked for, and he's making money. So boom, that's something in there that we memorialize. He's also taking swim classes, and swim is extremely important to me. So I want to make sure that, anything that is extracurricular related or activity related, that it's in here and it's understood who pays for what. and things like that. So in here, it states that we essentially have to agree to the activities, but in the event that we don't agree, whatever I want to do with my son, I could do with my son. Whatever he wants to do with our son, he could do with our son. And if we don't agree, then we're not splitting the cost of said activity, because both parents have to agree in order for the cost to be split. So that's something that we have in here, and I think that's fair, because there have been instances where like he wants to do something with our son and I'm just like, I'm not interested. The thing though that's important is that you make sure that it's somewhere in there states that you are allowed to attend anything related to the activities that our son is a part of. Like, you should not be shunned or outed of anything that your child is taking part in. So even though you didn't agree with, let's say, soccer, right? If he's attending soccer and he has a game and things like that, or practice, like, you should be able to attend that as a parent, even though you don't necessarily agree with that. And that's also in here. It also speaks about like just general like practice or lessons or things like that. That should only be for myself and his father to attend. And then significant others or third parties are only allowed or should only attend if there's like a recital or a performance or a game. But the intent is to not have significant others like, tagging along for everything, right? And unfortunately, because our situation was highly contentious, there's third parties, there's disagreement, there's hostile behavior. Because of that, it also states that mother and father shall exercise their best efforts to maximize the child's comfort as appropriate by maintaining a respectful distance, no less than 100 feet distance. So essentially, her paramour, whatever, she needs to stay 100 feet away from me, and my significant other would have to stay 100 feet away from them. So everybody split, everybody stay in their corners, pretty much, so to speak. That's how that's verbalized in here. And I think that's important when things are still contentious and there's discomfort with parties. So I wanted to make sure that that was in there. Initially, I tried to say she can't come to anything that I'm going to be a part of, but unfortunately, because they have a child together and that child is my son's little brother, like, there's literally nothing that I can do about that. So the court said, okay, wait, as a happy medium, just given everything and all the details and the facts of the case, we'll put in there that 100 feet will be acceptable to maintain distance from one another. Now, for medical and health related issues, I'm the one that is paying the insurance, or my son is on my insurance, and then my ex-husband pays me back a portion of that for his care. So everything related to health and medical, I am the one that sets up everything and, make sure that the appointments are scheduled and the follow-ups and all of that. So I upkeep all of the maintenance for that for our son. However, my ex-husband has access to all that information, and he can visit and come to doctor's visits, and he comes and he's present, dentist, doctor, whatever. But as far as like the managing or the administrative part of, that's on me as a mother, and that's detailed as well. And if anything were to happen where we have to make a decision regarding our son's health, like, I'm not the sole decision maker and he's not the sole decision maker. We both have to come to that together. So that's also a part of it. So an obligation to notify is also in here. And essentially the obligation to notify says that our responsibility is to make sure that we have communication about anything and everything concerning our son. Because things were so volatile and just a mess when it came to our court case, my attorney opted to suggest that we use a parenting app. And there are so many parenting apps out there where you can just strictly keep the communication in an app versus like texting, calling, and emailing one another. And for me, just given how things panned out, I was more comfortable with that approach. Communication has just been horrible. And for me, we use our Family Wizard, and we're responsible for paying the fee that is attached to using the app. But in our Family Wizard, we are able to, of course, email or, message each other back and forth. We can also add expenses in there. We can also, once my son is of age, we can also add him into the communication thread, and it can all be in the app. And one thing the app does is that's pretty cool. Like, it kind of flags inappropriate conversation. So that's something to be considered as well. And it also details in here like how you communicate with one another, the notices that you have to give one another, and the heads up and things like that, in order for it to encourage a more seamless communication as it relates to your parenting with your or for your child. The sucky part about all of this is that because my ex-husband was forbidding my access to our son at one point, we had to put telephone access in here, where it notes that, at a certain time a day, I have access to reach out to my son, to talk to him for whatever, whenever, however. And unfortunately, we had to put that in there because, like I mentioned, my ex-husband was limiting my ability to access our son. So anytime I would call to say goodnight or whatever during a certain time, he just wouldn't answer. He'll ignore my call, or there'll be some silly excuse as to why our son couldn't talk to me. And it was so heartbreaking because all I wanted to do was see my son's face and say goodnight. And he was just making it impossible and not allowing me to reach our son, which was unacceptable. And no parent should be doing that, right? Isolating you from your child at any given point. So I don't like to rush time, but I do look forward to the time when my son has his own phone and he can reach out to me and contact me, and we can talk to each other, and there's no third party in between, i.e. his father, able to intervene in our relationship. But that is in here because it was a problem, and thankfully the court agreed, like, no, she should have access to her child. Yes. So we have a set time where I'm able to reach out to our son. And my intent, like, I'm not one of those moms that wants to talk to my child all day, every day, or intervene or be nosy about what's going on over there. I literally just want to talk to my son, see how he's doing, let him know I'm thinking about him and I love him. And that's it. But for whatever reason, my ex-husband just wanted to use that as a dagger to just mess with me. And yeah, that's inappropriate. So that's in here as well. So then when it comes to the actual parenting time, it says, whatever days I have our son and whatever days he has our son. It even goes down to like the pickup time and the drop off time. So let's say pickup is at 5 p.m. Drop off is at 9 a.m. and that's what it is for that. The thing that I decided to implement in our parenting plan is that I didn't want to be dropping off my son at their house ever, and I didn't really care for him to be coming to my house either. So we have a drop-off location if there are moments where we have to meet to drop him off, and that's at a local Starbucks that is like 10 minutes away from my house, and I'd rather meet there. And there's like police and things around in that Starbucks just in case. So we go there, do the exchange, and keep it pushing. But I don't ever want to have to pull up to that man's house, and I don't necessarily need him to be pulling up to mine. So that's something that is in here as well. Good faith flexibility is something that is in here as well, because good faith flexibility is noted. And essentially what that means is that if there's anything that needs to shift in our scheduling, or anything that needs to change with regards to our son's care, that we would practice good faith flexibility. So essentially we won't be difficult just for the sake of being difficult, because that's been a thing as well. If something doesn't work out for you, it just doesn't work out for you in your schedule, and your co-parent will just have to figure it out, right? But if you have room to be flexible, like a day switch or an overnight switch or whatever, be flexible. And then unusual events. So like, sometimes on his side of the family, he'll have something going on. On my side of the family, I'll have something going on that goes against the schedule. And let's say it's a funeral or somebody's birthday or something like that, then we should be able to practice or say that and say, okay, can we switch days? Or I'd like to take our son here, and you kind of make a little bit of a compromise for those unusual events, because you do want your child to be able to enjoy moments when it makes sense. Again, if you have plans, you have plans. It is what it is. But where you can be flexible, essentially, that is what this document says. It's like, hey, just, work with us here, right? So that's what that details. So right of first refusal. This was important to enter into our parenting plan, because I found out through that woman that she was caring for our son. Like, she was literally taking care of our son while he was out and about. And that's what she told me. And I'm just like, well, if he can't take care of our son, then he could be home with mom, right? But because he doesn't want it to seem that way, and wants to maintain this 50-50 schedule for the child support reasons, he wants to be able to just do his thing and whatever. So we put the right of first refusal in there to say, hey, if you cannot care for our son, you got to let me know within a certain time frame. So let's say if you can't care for our son for more than 5 hours, then he should be with mom, and vice versa. And in a lot of cases, just because we don't want to deal with one another, like, I will find an alternative and things like that. But if it's an overnight thing, like, the intent is that he should be coming to me if he has to do something where he can't watch our son overnight. And likewise, I go to him first, right of refusal. I go to him first if I can't care for our son or something like that comes up. But yeah, I've seen it not practiced. I heard of it not practiced from our own child. So whatever, it's in there, but it's just in there. Holidays are the worst. So before we entered into this parenting plan, the holidays were kind of split. So I would have our son for half of Christmas and half of Thanksgiving and half of New Year's, and then we'll switch off. Well, that was not practical over time, because it was okay when we were okay. And when we were not okay, then it just created more friction. And the holidays just truly needed to just have a flip. So we do the every other year thing, where let's say one year I have him, this year I have him for, let's say, Thanksgiving. Next year he'll have him for Thanksgiving. This year I have him for, New Year's. Next year he'll have him for New Year's. So we flip every year. And I think that's easier, because it just gives you a moment to just break and plan out the holidays effectively. Also, one thing is that the winter break, the summer break, and the spring break are also broken down, which helps with planning for the holidays. So let's say this year I have him for the Christmas week, and next year he has them for the Christmas week. Then that means that we can also have a full week where we could plan accordingly and do what we need to do without like needing permission or going through that. Well, I want to have him for this event for Christmas and whatever. And when it comes to your family, just let them know that this is what it is, and have them understand, not to question or, no. The schedule is the schedule. The holidays are the holidays. But I will say that it's really tough to be away from my child during any time. And the holidays makes it really hard. It really makes me resent co-parenting during the holidays in certain instances. Like, I've had certain holidays when I didn't have him and I was great and I had a great time and I did my own thing with my friends and family and significant others, whatever. But there have been times where I'm just like sad and I miss him and I wish that he could be with me. And those moments are fleeting and they're come and go, but it's just a part of the process. So as it relates to the summer vacation, I mentioned that for summers, every other summer on the even years, I'm able to take our son to Panama. So that's something that, we consider for the summer breaks as well. But then there's also 2 weeks consecutive that he gets to be with our son in the summer. And I have 2 weeks consecutive that I'm with our son during the summer. And that's a nice little break that you get from parenting, which I think is important to just realize, because those school breaks come out of nowhere. And then you're like, what? And then you got to plan accordingly for that, for your own sake. I'm a working woman in corporate America, so I need those times in which I'm able to just work through the schedule. So that helps with that. Other thing to consider when you have travel into play and you want to figure out what's at play for your son's needs, who has the passports, who keeps the documentation. And in that regard, that is me. I hold everything. I have the passport, I have his social security card, I have everything in my possession. And of course, like, I will be obligated to give that information to his father if he needs it, or if he plans to travel abroad with our son, then of course I would give him the passport. And I think it says here I have to give him the passport within 5 days of him traveling with our son. But essentially, who keeps it and make sure that everything is in safekeeping, that's me. So relocation, it's amazing when you're in court virtually, like, you get to like sit in other people's cases, and relocation comes up a lot, and it is not easy to relocate. So you're gonna have a relocation clause in your parenting plan, and just know that if it ever came up to you having to relocate or wanting to explore that, it is going to be really hard, because in most states, they are going to side with the option that does not disrupt the child's life, his family, whatever he has access to, and things like that. I have grown such a great network in Chicago, and I have my people here. So relocating at this point in my life right now is not something that is top of mind, but it could be in the future, and you have to be able to justify a relocation, especially if it's going to affect your child's environment. If you're uprooting them, then you have to have good reason why this makes sense for him or her. And if that doesn't make sense, the court is likely going to deny the move. Just know that. I've seen it done. And I've also heard of many friends where, say, a lot of cases, I don't know, the woman lives in the man's home state and vice versa, and they've established this community and this family in their home state, and now said person wants to move back to their home state and be closer to their family. But if that child is of a certain age and everything and all their resources are idle to wherever you're at, the likelihood is that they're going to be right there. And the court is going to be like, you got to stay right here. Now, when it comes to a job and things like that, that might be something else. And sometimes they even consider what the child wants to do, right? And of course, that's like when they're older and teenagers and things like that. So that's something that you want to think about as well. And then outside of like relocation, we have a clause about mediation, and that being the first line of defense of us trying to work something out if anything regarding our parenting plan comes up where we don't necessarily agree. Our first line of defense is going to be to go to mediation, and there's a lot of free resources out there. Mediation is much cheaper than going to the court and filing a provision or a petition to change anything and go through that whole process. So in our allocation judgment, it does state that we will attempt to mediate first and try to work it out before we enter into court. But I would advise you to make sure that you have an ironclad parenting plan as detailed as possible, and make sure that you list out all of the things that are important to you before you enter into a parenting plan. That way, if you're doing it yourself or you're working with an attorney, you're understanding what your non-negotiables are as it relates to the best care of your child. And then you can explore anything with regard to some compromise in between, just based on what your co-parent wants. In my situation, I just feel like my ex-husband wanted to go against everything that I suggested. Even if it was good, even if it was a good idea, it was just a fight just because, which was annoying, but whatever. I would say that maybe 80% of the things that were really important to me were addressed, and for the most part in my favor. But again, I don't think in these situations anybody wins. It's just more so a common ground, and the things that are very important to you, if those things get acted on, then you're in good hands essentially. That concludes the video for today. So thank you for joining me. Make sure you check the playlist if you want to understand how I got here in the first place. And then I think I'm pretty much wrapped up with the court series and moving on into just general life stuff that I will be sharing with you all. So maybe a little bit of vlogging, a little bit of divorce and how that came about, a little bit about my family history, all of that. We'll talk about all of that. So if my content resonates with you, be sure to like, share, and subscribe to my channel, Dina J from Around the Way. And you can also find me on all social media platforms listed over here. And I'm so glad to be with you. All right. Thank you for joining me, and we will catch each other in the next video. All right. Bye.
Okay, we are testing. The light behind me a little bit.
Okay, hey y'all, welcome back to my channel.